Customize your grips advanced jaw harp. Now this question is coming from us from at Hopelessly Hype, who was commenting that they had a jaw harp and where the jaw harp's being held is kind of sharp and causing some discomfort. Is there anything we can do about that? And the answer is yes. Here is what I do to harps in my personal collection. Now I've done this to morchang, to some mun harp, also to vargan, and any harp that has a nice, very crisp, very fine edge where we're holding, or if the harp is rough, we can do this as well. This is a Mohan Dream State Morchang in D2. Fantastic instrument, but it does have a very, very expertly forged edge. This wasn't even filed. You can see the embouchure area was filed to finish it clean, but the rest of this is just expertly forged to a very, very fine edge. And the first thing I do is I'll feel up and down it, make sure there's no rough spots. Sometimes you'll get rough spots on the tail. But the main place we want to concentrate on is where we're holding it. So first thing, you might get in front of a mirror, get yourself permanent marker and your jaw harp and probably a mirror. Here I have a mirror. I'm looking at the monitor on the iPhone camera. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to grip the jaw harp like you normally would. Put it in your mouth. Note where you're holding it and where your fingers are contacting. So I'm contacting across here and here with my thumb, my forefinger. So I want to take and note that. I'll note it right across the back and I'll just put a mark across there and across the front here. So if that area marked and the other area is across the top and sometimes even the back. So I'll mark that area with a marker. And I can pretty much see, I'm probably going to get permanent marker on my hands. I pretty much see where I hold the harp. Also, if you have sharpness here on the tail, which is not uncommon, but not on all harps is it going to be sharp, you can also file that. So let's next talk about how we're going to smooth this down. We've got it marked so we can indicate where we want to file, or you could even just keep it in mind where you want to file. You could file a little bit, but let's come down here. Let's take a gander and see what we can do next. Next thing, I'm going to put down some cardboard because I don't want to be getting metal dust on the harpery table here. And we need our harp. We have our harp here. We're able to mark where our fingers were holding it. We see there, here, 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 and here. We have it marked. Now we need a way to cut into the harp a little bit. We'll come right in here. And one good way is a file. What I've got, I think this is a Nicholson. It's called this is a mill bastard. It's not super coarse and it's not super fine. What I don't like using are these super duper coarse double cuts for removing large amounts of metal where you have to apply good pressure. What I want is something a little bit finer for removing metal, and that is this mill bastard file. You can also use, there are some of these, I think these are Harbor Freight, but this is a half round file. Not super high quality, but it will actually work. If you have stones, you can also use stones. Here's a coarse cylinder borehole and a fine. It's best to use them with water, so we probably won't use them much. And last and not at all least is a little bit of sandpaper. This sandpaper has been well used on harps. This is 100 grit sandpaper, and then I have 1,000. You could hit a lot of different grits in between, but you don't necessarily have to. Now, the places that we are going to avoid, this is the embouchure area. Here's our reed. Here's our frame. This is the embouchure area. This is the area the Mohan have. Ridiculous. You can't even see through those. Let's see if we can get some white paper behind there and see if we can even see through that. That is ridiculously tight. We don't want at all when we're doing this. One, we don't want to permanently bend the reed or anything like that. Also, we don't want any work, and especially sandpaper. Do not ever sand the inside of your embouchure area. What will happen if you sand the inside of your embouchure area? It's going to make the harp quieter because the gaps are going to get larger, so we're going to avoid that area. So we have these areas here where our fingers are gripping. And what we can do here is, let's see if we can move right to the edge of the bench. Just going to I'm doing this without a vise. Now, I don't want to go clamping this harp in a vise, because when we clamp it in a vise, if you clamp it too hard, it can cause deformation. It can cause the arms to start to do this. That's horrible for the sound. So one of the best things you can have is a nice wood block. Now, what I've got here is just like a 3x3 piece of wood. I think this is hackberry. But this allows me to get my hands up off of the table, because I want something raised so that I can hold it with my hand off the table. And also when you do the other side, you can't lay this down flat on the table. It's going to bend it. I can lay it there, and that allows for the reed. So I've got these areas here. A lot of things people don't know about the file is we want to take strokes forward. If you look at the file, it's a whole bunch of tiny teeth. So I want to work with the file, but I don't want to drag back across, putting pressure. If you drag back across, putting pressure, you'll have some flattening. So we're going to come, and I like to come from about here, because when I'm holding it, I'm not just here. My fingers might drift down here. So I want to go clear almost out to the embouchure area, but only on these flat outside parts. I don't want anything to contact the embouchure area. So if all you have to work with, if you don't have files, if you just have a couple pieces of sandpaper, you want to make sure that you're not getting into the embouchure area, that you're staying on the outside. So let's just go here, give it a few strokes, and you can already see it's already starting to flatten it a little bit. It was a little bit flatter on the back anyways because of when he did his crimp. Now I want to be careful not to be putting so much pressure. I don't want to bend these arms. Don't want to bend them out of kilter. You don't want to bend them apart, but also thing to think about, you don't want to end up bending the arms. So that's why I'm not clamping this in a vise, because clamping in a vise can cause the metal to squish, and then your arms or your harp, one can go this way, one can go that way, and that is just horrible for sound quality. You're going to get a fuzziness to the harp that is not as pleasant. We'll just give it a couple strokes here. File. Got some flattening. We'll come back to this part that was sharp and give it a little bit more. And now you can get extreme with it. You could take this down a little ways. You wouldn't want to file super far into the harp, because then you're doing away with harp frame, but just filing this edge off is not going to hurt anything, provided, there we go, look at that. You can see where it's flattening there, and then give it a feel. Oh, my front, this part feels good. This part feels a little bit sharp yet, so we'll just give it some strokes. You can literally see where you're filing. You can see where it's catching and glinting. See right there where I was just filing from here to there. It's catching more light, so we're flattening it. Now, we don't have much back here. We're going to hit back here, move it around, different ways, gripping it. And don't use so much pressure with the file that it gets away from you, because you can only grip it so hard with your hands. You don't want to squeeze it as hard as you can, because if you start squeezing harps as hard as you can, they're going to start deforming. All that area looks good. I would say I would do a little bit of flattening up to about here. His fingers can contact. And oftentimes, you might be filing. Pay attention to where you're taking off metal, because if you're trying to file right here, and if the file is pitching down, you're only contacting here, so pay attention to which side you're wanting to file on. So you might have to tip one way or another to contact where you want. I want to be right here, so I'm tipping the file, so I'm just catching that arm, because that's the one I want to get. If I want to get this one, maybe I'll tip it forward a little bit. I can move it so I can get that tip in there. There we go. That's looking good. That looks really good, actually. I feel it. It feels good. Here, ooh, right there, I got flattening up to here. I can go ahead and I'm going to, see, I got flattened all the way up to here. Nice holding area. And then here it's not catching light. So my fingers can oftentimes be here. So what I'm going to do is I want to go clear up to here. I'll tip to hit this arm. Tip, 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 tip. Okay, I've got this arm. To get this arm, I need to tip back to contact this arm. So tip, tip, tip. Doesn't have to be a lot. That's looking good. Now, other areas you might find sharpen your holding, because everybody's going to be holding these different. Sometimes we'll bring our finger up over here. We can bring it around this way. A little bit of flattening. And sometimes for going around corners, a half round file. This is flat on one side, rounded on the other. Might be really, really good for this. You don't have to take off a lot. Just enough to get rid of the sharp edge. There we go. And here with this half round file, I can get right in there. But when you can see, now it's catching light where I've been taking metal off. Yeah, that's going to be nice. And I don't have to take off a lot. I just have to blunt that edge ever so slightly. This edge, oh, extremely nice forging right there. It is not easy to get forging lines like that at all. And Mohan is a master of his craft. But sometimes that's not always as comfortable. So it's good for you also to get to know your jaw harps by working on them if you can. I would say unless you are a harpsmith or are okay with messing up a harp, you might not want to adjust gaps or stuff like that. And most makers will not like you to adjust their harps, but if you have a morchang or a lower cost harp that's just killer and you want to customize your gaps, you can, if you're okay with taking the risk of working on a harp. Now, there are even risks to doing this. Somebody could be pressing this and then end up slipping off and end up bending an arm. So anytime you work on a harp, you should know that there are risks associated with it. Now, I've went ahead and I have sanded that everywhere. It's much, much more comfortable. I notice right here, I'm still feeling some pressure. So I'm going to take this half round file and just dig in just a little bit. These smaller files are a little bit easier to dig. There we go. Now we are creating slight microscopic burrs. So you might take your sandpaper and just wipe down. Remember, don't get this in the embouchure area. Stay away from the embouchure area. Might wipe. Now, I'm just doing these edges I just did. I don't want to be doing the flats because the flats have this beautiful forged look that I don't want to mess up. So I'm just wiping it on the edge, on the very edge, and I don't have to do a bunch. And you can feel where things kind of catch a little bit, a little catchy, and now it sounds like it's smooth. You can hear where it catches. Oh, those burrs are gone. Also, sometimes I don't want to sand the tongue in this dimension, but I do like to sand the edges of the tongue of the tail. And if your sandpaper's getting worn out in one spot, just pick a different spot. Sometimes it's helpful to go around the finger and hold like this. Yeah. You can, if your tails are really rough, you can file them, but these Mohan are genuinely pretty clean forgings. So I can go around, I can tie it around my finger, hold it like so. Just giving little motions, avoiding the tongue, avoiding the inner embouchure areas. And you're going to notice your fingers are going to turn dark because you're going to have metal shaving. So don't do this over your bed or over anything you aren't okay with getting metal shavings for. Lastly, I'll skip from 100 right to 1,000 because 1,000 I really won't change shape, but I can really make that super duper smooth. I'm just concentrating on the edges. I'm not doing the flats. I'm concentrating on these edges that I just filed. That kind of gets the microscopic burrs on the edge where we filed away. There we go. And you can visibly actually see the areas that we've made flatter, a little more comfortable. Now you can go until you have full dimples for your finger if you want. Let's see. My thumb goes right there. I could probably give it a little dimple. We're going to hit it with this coarse stone. And I'm just going to file a little depression in there. Yeah, now it's a little bit lower right there, which is, ooh, that's comfortable and that's nice for the thumb. How about this finger here? I can file a little depression right there. Now I can mark it with my marker, or I could just hold my finger there and then pay attention. Okay, it needs to be right from here to here. Cool thing about a stone is you can put pressure in both directions, forward and backward, without damaging it. Now, this would be best with water, but yeah, you can see where I really am creating a depression, and it's very, very slight depression for my finger. Now, the last thing, before you put this harp in your mouth, is go wash it off with soapy water, rinse it with clean water, and then dry it thoroughly, and then hit it with coconut oil. But I hope this helps, and comment below, what do you think about customizing your grips?